All right.
So, hello, everyone. This is Pam Pfeffer, my grandmother, and she's lived in Nashville for how many years?
Well, 54 and a half, I guess it is.
54 and a half years. So, we're going to go through her journey arriving to Nashville, her observations about how Nashville has changed, um, everything to do with the landscape, the culture, and its growth now into a big metropolis. So, first question is, when did you move to Nashville and why?
Well, the background is your grandfather and I met in undergrad school in a physics class at Southern Illinois University. And we ended up marrying the day after he got his bachelor's degree. I was only 2 years through my undergrad at the time. But during the time he did his master's degree, I managed to complete all but 15 quarter hours of my undergrad work, including my major in mathematics and minor in chemistry. And then we were looking for a place for him to get his PhD, and we ended up choosing Vanderbilt in Nashville. And so we came to Nashville for his PhD work at Vanderbilt. I finished up those remaining just miscellaneous requirements a university has and did that at Belmont University, a nearby school. Nashville has a lot of schools, so it's not hard to find one. And then went to Vanderbilt for my master's in mathematics. And we had no idea when we came that we would end up living here all of these years.
That's brilliant. And when you got to Nashville all those years ago, what were your first impressions? What did it look like? And how do you remember those early years looking back?
Well, when we had talked about this earlier, I grew up in a very small town, about population of about 7,000. And our college town was 15,000 plus maybe 20,000 in the university. So Nashville, with a population then of about 300,000, seemed to be quite a large city to me. And my experience growing up in such a small town, if anything was happening in town, you took advantage of it.
Yeah,
If it was the showboat on the river, you went to see the play.
yeah,
If it was the ice cream social at the country church, you went because you didn't want to miss anything.
yeah.
At the university, it was sort of the same way. If there was a game on or a theater production or a concert, you took advantage of it.
Mm.
Well, Nashville to me was this really pretty big city, and there were more things than you could possibly do. So it was a little overwhelming to a small town girl. Plus, our budget didn't exactly allow for a lot of tickets to anything. Um, but when we moved to Nashville, there was one tall building, the LNC Tower, and for 50 cents, you could ride the elevator to the observation deck and get the view from way up high. The interstate system had been approved and was in the process of being constructed across the country, but Nashville did not yet have completed interstates. So it was a very different type of space. Um, Let me think. I was trying to look at some notes I had.
Yeah, yeah,
One of the things growing up in a small town, um, we only had one school system,
right.
and my graduating class in high school, which was pretty much the entire county,
Mm.
was 103. So it did not matter what your color of skin was or your background. We were all in school together. So I was accustomed to just, everybody was the same.
Right. And which
And
years were that, roughly?
years, I graduated from high school in 1963.
1963. So it would have been the 50s, late 50s and early 60s. Yeah.
Um, because we didn't have the luxury. And my first school was all of 4 rooms.
Right.
one for each grade, 1, 2, 3, and 4.
Okay.
And so it wasn't a one-room schoolhouse, but it was only marginally
Yeah.
bigger than that. And then for fifth and sixth, we went to the bigger school that had 6 grades.
Mm.
And so there were 2 classes of fifth and
Mm.
sixth. By seventh grade and eighth grade, everybody was in the same school. And so we had 4 classes of seventh grade and 4 of eighth grade.
Right.
And then, high school, it was most of the county. There were a couple of country schools that had a few people,
Right.
but it
Right.
was the bulk of it. And so when we came to Nashville, it was still when there was some segregation, which seemed very strange to me. Vanderbilt was not
Mm-hmm.
segregated, but Nashville was. And so in the 60s, while we were, still fairly new here, the beginning of the end of that
Mm-hmm.
segregation was happening. And one of the things that happened, there university students here, we have, like I said, many universities,
Right.
but you have Tennessee State University, Fisk and Meharry, that are traditionally Black schools, although now they are somewhat more integrated, but still heavily Black. Some of the students
Mm.
did a sit-in at a lunch counter in downtown Nashville. And it was the beginning of all of the marches and
Right.
the bus rides and all of this. And I had mentioned to you earlier, this was all written up in a book called The Children,
Yeah.
author David Halberstam. And your grandfather, when he was president of Random House, actually published that book.
Right.
So it was an interesting time. When we first came to Nashville, if we were in a group like our Sunday school class,
Mm-hmm.
we go around and hear everyone's background. If you were not born in Nashville, you were really the exception.
Right.
And now we have an incredibly diverse population from all over the world.
Mm.
Now, if you would go around a group like that, being born in Nashville is the exception.
Right.
So it is totally flipped. Um, for example, within 3 to 4 minutes of our home here, there are 2 Korean-speaking churches,
Yeah.
one Methodist, one Presbyterian.
Yeah.
Years ago, when there was the first vote for Iraq,
Yeah.
trying to develop their new government, Nashville was one of 5 locations in the United States chosen to
Yeah.
be a voting hub because of our large Iraqi population. And so now you have every kind of mix of people, of background. There are over 100 languages that our public schools deal with.
Yeah.
So English as a second language is a huge area of
Right.
concentration to help, these students get up to speed, because it's not the language, English is not their home language.
Right. Right.
So, and over the last year, I've really, for the first time, just about ever, while systemic racism, I would say, existed back in the 60s,
Mm.
it had moved so far away from that. It seems strange to me to people calling things systemic,
Mm.
because that is not what I observe in my life here.
In Nashville now. Yeah.
In Nashville today, our little neighborhood within, the Nashville, the bigger community, we only have 46 homes, but
Mm-hmm.
within those homes, we have white, brown, and Black.
Yeah.
We have every orientation you can have.
Yeah.
I mean, it is a very diverse little neighborhood, and it's
Right.
very typical of what we have here. Um, so, this neighborhood, we enjoy getting together for neighborhood events
Yeah.
when it's not COVID time. We get together in smaller groups to go to each other's homes for dinners.
Yeah.
And we ignore any of those supposed divisions. It's
Yeah.
just not here. We're just all friends and neighbors.
Yeah.
sort of like the way it was when I grew up in that little tiny town.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, One of the things you asked about was what food.
Right.
Well, I grew up close enough to Nashville. Um, it's no more than about 150 miles from one to the other.
Hmm.
Uh, so food is very much the same as what I grew up with. But
Yeah.
one thing you would find interesting about the change when we first came to Nashville, there was nothing, there were no restaurants
Hmm.
that served liquor by the drink. By law, that was not an option.
Yeah.
It really limited what restaurant options were out there. I could probably have enough fingers to tell you the options where
Yeah.
you could opt for a meal. Um, that if you wanted an alcoholic beverages a beverage with a meal, you had to brown bag it,
Yeah.
which the restaurant could give you the glass or the setup, but you had to pour the alcohol from the bottle you carried into the restaurant.
Right. Right.
And in the 70s, that changed. The law changed so that
Mhm.
restaurants could serve liquor by the drink. So now we have restaurants of every imaginable type,
Yeah.
every type of food, every ethnicity, just a wide variety to the point I have had some people on airplanes or whatever that are foodies wanting to know where to go in Nashville.
What Nashville sites are.
You know, what a difference that has been.
Yeah.
And you also asked about the music scene. Well,
Mhm.
obviously, we are known as Music City.
Right.
So the outside perception is more country music.
Yeah. Yeah.
The truth is, we have and have had quite a vibrant music culture. And country music is important to us. And we get a lot of tourists that want to come here and
Yeah.
country music and do the country line dances or whatever, but it represents only about 20% of
Hmm.
our recording in the music area. We have everything from country, bluegrass, pop, rock, blues, jazz, Christian, symphonic, etc. And we have live music all over the city.
Right.
You can walk down a street in downtown Nashville and you'll have live music coming out of like every other doorway.
Yeah. I remember that.
Fly in, and there's country music quite often, or not just country. The Tootsies will have country music in
Yeah.
Concourse C, but there will be music,
Mhm.
live music being played in the airport most of the hours of the day.
Yeah. Yeah.
Welcome to Nashville. It's
Yeah.
what we, and
Nothing like it.
it really isn't. But we have obviously a country music museum.
Right.
We have an African American music museum, but a
Right.
lot of others representing everybody from Johnny Cash on.
Yeah.
So it's a lot of fun. Our symphony here grew from just a little local symphony to a regional to now one that is nationally recognized.
Hmm.
And we have, Grammys. I
Right.
remember one time at a board meeting getting to hold our first Grammy.
Yeah.
That was really a fun day. But we, have a very, you know, well recognized symphony at this point. The music community here is very inclusive. The musicians across all genres are friends. They're
Hmm.
very supportive of each other. The writers for the
Yeah.
music are just everywhere. And people come here because of this creative atmosphere,
Yeah.
between the writing and the performing of music. Um, and I had mentioned there's interesting friendships and collaborations. One I think is particularly fun is Loretta Lynn,
Yeah.
very and older, with Jack White. You
Right.
know, very different
Would
music
imagine.
back. Um, but it's taken seriously here because it is a huge business,
Right.
but it's enjoyed, and we have fun with it. Um, one example I had given you back when we were launching that book I had mentioned, The Children. Um, we hosted sort of the launch party here at our home.
Yeah.
Was because of the topic. We had politicians from every side of the aisle.
Right.
I'm from the governor and mayor and representatives and senators and all state and local as well as some national. But the neatest part is many of these people that were the children back in the
Yeah.
original in the 60s. Here we were 30 years later, and many of them had not been together since the days of those sit-ins and
Right.
marches. And so they were having
United in Nashville.
a fabulous reunion.
Yeah.
And while we were here, um, Mr. Halverson said now he would only be here from 7 to 9.
Mm-hmm.
And we said, that'll be fine. But we had a pianist come just to provide some background music. And before it was all over, the party went on and on. And I don't think Mr. Halverson left until about midnight. And the children had gathered around the piano and had convinced the pianist to switch from general music to some gospel. They were having a big old sing along while another subgroup of them were out on the patio having a great time visiting. The caterer finally moved the food into the kitchen, saying, I've got to work tomorrow.
Yeah.
So the food kept being eaten. And the party finally broke up around 2 a.m. So,
yeah.
Music was definitely a part of it and definitely a fun thing to enjoy.
Yeah. A common thread between
but
all of Nashville.
that would not be an atypical kind of thing to happen
Right.
in that.
Right.
Because we just have fun being together
Yeah.
and, fun with music being a part of it.
Yeah.
Then you asked about industries here. And one strength that I have noticed in Nashville, and understand my background, once upon a time, I was a lending officer. In fact, probably to the best of my knowledge, the first woman in Nashville to be a lending officer.
Yeah.
Fun little tidbit there.
Yeah.
But the business community is very diversified, which is somewhat insulated Nashville, that when there is a recession or something in the country, we are one of the last places to really begin to feel it, because if one industry is hurt, there are so many other industries that seem to make it or thrive during that kind of time. Like retail stores have been hurt, but Amazon with distribution has thrived.
Yeah.
Well, we have the diversity that it cushions us somewhat. Back when I was a lending officer, banking and insurance and the brokerage business was a huge industry in this area.
Right.
As those businesses grew, they were bought by entities that had headquarters in other cities. So really there was a dip in that area. But what I have observed in the last very few years, that vacuum is being solved by many new banks have started up and other large banks have moved in. The brokerage companies, right now, Alliance Bernstein is moving in from New York. There's another company that is getting ready to move their office from Chicago.
Yeah.
So we have local investment firms that are building from within, as well as others moving from other large cities where
some other hubs coming into Nashville for the first,
with no state income tax.
Right.
That's a very appealing thing for individuals as well as businesses.
Right.
So, that's a strong area now. We are a major trucking hub. If you look at the map and you see where Nashville is located geographically, we are within one truck driving day of 2/3 of the US population.
That's
So
amazing.
you can have a truck driver drive in from Florida, offload something, get some sleep, unload something and go back to Florida, while another one is making the Nashville Chicago run, for
Right.
example. And so it's a real hub. So we have geographically a great location for that. We have three major interstates that intersect here. So we go north, south, east, west easily with these interstates.
Yeah.
And when you think about the trucking, it's not just the truckers coming in and out, but all the subsidiary
All the
business,
industries that come around the
all
truck.
the ones that are selling the tractors or the trailers or the tires. I had one customer back at the bank that he had an entire business of just taking alternators and refurbishing them for the trucking industry,
Right.
and he did quite well. So all these subsidiary related businesses, and because of our geographic and interstate um, location, we also have the largest distribution logistics hub.
Hmm.
Amazon has been here for a long time, and they're getting ready to move 5,000 more people in.
Right. The heart of the states.
And but your grandfather built the largest book distribution company in the
Right.
world, right here in Nashville. We had Ingram Entertainment, which was back in the day, videos and games and all kinds of things. And then a microcomputer company that we originated the distribution for that and became, I believe it's still the largest in the world. It
Yeah.
has been bought out. It went public on the New York Stock Exchange and then taken private. But then about the year 2000 or so, we transitioned. We had gone from here to when he was president of Random House. So we were here and in the Northeast. And then when he came back here, got involved with a reverse logistics company. And that's a whole nother thing.
Interesting.
Take a whole explanation we won't go into right now.
Okay. I'll ask you later about reverse logistics. Yeah.
But anyway, that has become a huge thing. And these are all within a fairly few miles, all these distribution
Yeah.
facilities. We have a lot of automotive companies.
Mm-hmm.
For example, Nissan has moved their US headquarters to this area. GM is just a few minutes down the road south of us, and they have a major facility. Volkswagen's a little bit further away, but still in this Middle Tennessee general area. But then connected with that, there are over 1,000 different suppliers of all of the parts that have to be available
Right.
to build these cars.
Right.
And so all of these things have, um, legs that reach out very, very deep in this area. Healthcare is another major thing.
Right.
We not only have Vanderbilt University as far as a medical school, we have Meharry as a medical school. We have pharmacy schools, nursing specialties where you can get not only your nursing degree, but you can become a nurse practitioner or a physician's assistant right here. But we also have companies like HCA that own hospitals all around. And I had mentioned that your brother and sister in London were born in an HCA hospital. Right. And so I had alerted the head of HCA here that I had grandchildren getting ready to be born.
Yeah.
And your mom got some really red carpet treatment. And she was like, this is really pretty nice.
Yeah.
And then I told her, I said, well, I kind of arranged it. And she was like, how do you know people like that? Nashville's a big, small town.
Behind everything.
Behind everything, it's a big, small town. But we also have all kinds of special clinics, research facilities. And I had mentioned everything from genetics, that we're involved with the genetics company researching some pretty cool stuff right now on not only COVID antibodies, but all kinds of others.
Yeah.
And we're involved with another company developing rehab equipment for people that are paraplegic or quadriplegic. So it's just a wide variety of stuff in healthcare. We're in education. community. As I said, we have so many universities that just about anything you want to study, we've got you covered. We have a large tourism industry.
Mm,
And of course, music is one of the things that draw people, but we have sports, many professional sports. We have historic things, but we are also easy to access by a huge part of the US population. And we're deemed a pretty safe place. And so I had mentioned that we're even a favorite spot for bachelorette parties because the parents think Nashville's safe.
the girls can go around safely, no trouble.
um, and we have a very strong entrepreneurial community.
Right.
A lot of new businesses and ideas um, come
Yeah.
here. And
Especially recently, right?
pardon?
Especially recently, right?
Especially, yeah, the last, I don't know, decade,
Yeah.
it has really been a growing part of the community. Yeah, the last 10 or 15 years has been substantial in the change. All in all, though, it's been a great place to live, to raise a family. Friendships grow around the neighborhood, the
Mm,
school, or the neighborhood sports thing,
right.
the football teams or soccer teams. And the churches are
Yeah.
very important to
Yeah.
life here in Nashville. Um, Southern hospitality is a real thing, but so it has welcomed in all of these diverse people and their backgrounds. And I think, well, I was just talking over the weekend with the head of this investment firm from Chicago that is coming
That is
in.
coming to Nashville.
And he said in all the years that he's come here to do business, he has never felt anything but welcomed,
Yeah.
by the Southern hospitality that
Yeah.
really is here. Uh, People are very friendly, but I also mentioned that personal space is really respected.
Right.
And we have a lot of, quote, famous people
Yeah.
here. Um, and it's not just the musicians. I mean, Nicole
Yeah.
Kidman in the neighborhood. And so, but what you find is if they want to go, if a famous person wants to go to a restaurant or to the grocery store or to their child's soccer game, everybody treats them just like everybody else.
Yeah. Lets them be.
They're not asked for their autographs or pictures. They're just regular people. And I think they enjoy that relaxed
Mm,
atmosphere. And it just makes it a nice place because
yeah.
they can have a real life.
Have a family and be themselves.
Yeah. So,
That's brilliant. Um, there's a lot of details about all the different industries, the music, the food, which makes me want to ask if there's a moment, when did you feel that Nashville started to change? Um, and how did it change?
well, like I say, when we came, it was a population of around 300,000,
Yeah.
uh, a sleepy small city. Um, it has changed over the years, but it's sort of like when water begins to boil, it kind of just gets a little warmer, or a snowball
Yeah.
starts rolling down a hill. It's little at first and it gains momentum and size. The change was so gradual that we didn't feel it
Yeah.
that for a long time. And it has picked up steam. And I would say in the last 15 years or so, it's when you began to go, whoa, where did that traffic come from?
Yeah. Yeah.
It really has begun to change. And instead of being able to get everywhere in 15 minutes or less,
Yeah.
it's got to
Now
be
you have to
where it
plan.
come from. You have to plan, and it takes a little longer to get there. Or you don't go from our home to the airport on certain roads at 3:30 in the afternoon or
Yeah.
4.
Yeah.
You kind of learn things are a little different. Um, but it has been amazing. The downtown has changed and is
Mm,
changing substantially. We had the one tall building. Now we have a plethora of tall buildings. In fact, one time, just a few months ago, I happened to be sitting at a traffic light And I looked up, I was approaching the downtown area, and I counted 16 large cranes on the horizon that I could see from that traffic light.
That's impressive.
Give you an idea of how much building is going on.
Yeah.
So it's just like I drive downtown. It's like, where did that
Where did
building
that
come?
come from?
I don't think it was there last week. Anyway, it looks so different that sometimes you have to kind of pay attention to where you are, that you don't turn the wrong place.
Yeah.
There was one area downtown that back when I was a banker, it was called the Gulch.
Yeah.
And it's where the railroads, it was a lower spot where the railroads came through. And there were warehouses up against that. There was no reason to go there, even in the day, really.
Right.
And you didn't really want to go there. There's nobody there.
Yeah.
So, now the Gulch is quite the trendy downtown area. It is very popular, very upscale, lots of apartments and condos, hotels, restaurants of all kinds, shopping. I mean, it is quite different than it was just a few years back.
Right.
East Nashville is another area. East Nashville 20 years ago is an area that probably, as a woman, I would not necessarily want to walk around by myself 20 years ago.
Right.
Now it is a very trendy area, very walkable neighborhoods, very popular with both the millennials that are getting into maybe first homes, baby boomers who are wanting to downsize, get an area that the yard isn't so big to take care of, and also it's really, there's been some thought given to the planning, really nicely done in that area, maybe a little better than some other areas where there's been some infilling, but there has been effort to make it where you have old Victorian homes that have been restored, or some homes that had seen their day, and then some where we've gone in and redone those. And your dad and Uncle Jamie have been instrumental in that. And your grandfather and I've gotten drug into some of that too.
Gotten your hands dirty.
Yeah, but we did a little over 350 homes in that general area, salting the neighborhoods, taking the really rundown places and making them very nice, and putting enough in that other people have come along and helped move that along. But it is now an area where people can easily walk, from their home to one of the commercial corners that have been put in, where there are restaurants and groceries and dry cleaners and all. That it's really a very walkable, wonderful area that you could be in any time of the day or night, which is really cool.
And a huge change, I guess, then from 20 years ago.
Huge change. In one area, there was a road that was sort of a sketchy road for a number of years. It had seen its heyday, and it had gone down and down. And your uncle, Jamie, has, they've taken one old 50s motel and turned it into quite a trendy spot, even though the name is called the Dive.
Yeah.
The hotel rooms each are individually decorated. And you and I may not be really excited about going, but when it opened, it was already booked for months in advance.
Yeah.
And it made magazines, everything from the Southwest Airline magazine to Conte Nast.
Yeah.
So, huge publicity, unbelievable. And just maybe a quarter mile down from there right now, he is working on with a group of us, because Papa and Abby got drug into this too, an old car wash that had been closed, and they're turning the bays of the car wash into a small restaurant kitchen, where they can try a new concept without the investment in a whole restaurant.
Yeah.
Basically, the kitchen and a front counter, and you can get food to go, or Uber Eats can help you, or you can eat there in shared outdoor space.
Right.
But to a half dozen new restaurants, and by the time it hit the newspaper that it was happening, 5 of the 6 spots were already rented. The lease was signed, and the sixth one was in the works.
Yeah.
So, and nearby are restaurants and condos, or apartments and condos that
Yeah.
are built so within walkable distance.
Right.
This will
Right.
be a really popular spot. It'll be fun to see when it
When it
does
takes off. Yeah.
finish this summer. And I had said tourism has grown substantially. We have a large convention center.
Mm.
We have a large number of tourists who just come for the music and the food.
Yeah.
Um, and we also have a lot of historic sites to see. Everything from the historic, like the Hermitage, which was
Yeah.
President Nixon's home. We have various museums. We
There's the
have
Parthenon,
the Parthenon,
which is so
absolutely.
strange.
Well, I remember years ago going to Athens
Yeah.
and visiting the real site of the Parthenon. And the tour guide had the audacity to say, but if you want to know what it used to look like, go to Nashville,
Go to
Tennessee.
Nashville. Yeah.
Came from there. And I don't know, it's been what, 15, 20 years ago. The huge Athena statue was put inside
Mm.
and then covered with gold leaf. It is something to see on its own. It would be worth a trip to Nashville
Stunning.
just to see that. And then many people come for the sports. Um, we have the NFL team, the Titans. We have the hockey team, the Predators. The Titans, we did make it to the Super Bowl one time, didn't win, and we keep hoping there will be another time.
Next year. Next year.
Well, every once in a while we make some run at it and then things don't quite work out. The Predators have been in the Stanley Cup playoffs. So, that is exciting, and
Mhm.
it's really a fun thing to do, to go to one of these hockey teams play games. And it's really weird being a Southerner. We're not used to ice
Yeah.
hockey. This is kind of a new thing. At first they had to give us information on how the game was played. So you went in to watch the game and were reading the
And you were
rules
told
because we
how
had
to
no
go. Yeah.
clue about this strange stuff called ice hockey. Um, we have a Nashville soccer club that just had its inaugural game last year, and I had the privilege of going to that, and that was a lot of fun to kick off a new professional team.
Yeah.
And so then our Sounds baseball game, our team is a AAA. But I understand in the next year or two, we are on the list for a possible expansion, Major League Baseball
Brilliant.
team. Sports have been, really a growing thing here. Um, so
That's
anyway, that gives you a lot of background on how Nashville has changed and
yeah.
some of the fun things about it.
Yeah. And Nashville today. So we talked about Nashville when you arrived there, about what is the scene in Nashville, and how it's changed recently. Nashville today, what is the influence of its growth and the connection, or the interstate highways on the landscape? Have there been ecological changes, parks, animals, birds, and deer? I know you have in your home.
Oh yeah.
Different neighborhoods like East Nashville, how have they changed?
Well, um, Nashville, some areas like where we live have not changed a lot in appearance, because back in the early days of growth, we had septic fields.
Yeah.
We are based on a very strong limestone base with not much dirt. And so you had to have a large piece of property per home.
Yeah.
So homes would have 1 and 2, sometimes more acreage,
Right.
just to provide that. And we have rolling hills. And so Nashville is a very pretty city, because of these nice residential areas that where the homes are spread out. Um, we now have sewers everywhere, in spite of the rock, but zoning ordinances had gone in that kept the lots the same size.
Yeah.
It has made some very pretty residential areas. There are areas that have been active in infill, that lots, the density of property is much more. Um, and some of those, they're still trying to do sidewalks and make them walkable,
Hmm.
but the houses are a little more crowded. I think East Nashville has perhaps done it best in the way they have been able to do the walkable neighborhoods.
Yeah.
So some areas have done it better than others, but some have done it really quite well. Um, and so anyway, some areas look different, some don't.
Yeah.
Um, let's see. We also have had some people really make a conscious effort to have greenways.
Yeah.
There have been people that have actually donated some of their property, maybe when they pass away in their will, providing
Like,
for some greenways so that people have places to walk or have places to enjoy. We have a number of parks,
mhm.
the largest being the Percy and Edwin Warner Park, left by the Warner family. Over 4 square miles of just parkland.
Yeah.
And it encompasses wonderful trails to walk or jog, bird watching, that kind of thing, space for model planes, drones,
Yeah.
picnic areas, a golf course, some sports fields, just about every kind of use imaginable, but a very active nature center
Yeah.
as well as a part of that. You have Centennial Park where the
Mhm.
Parthenon is, and they've recently done some renovations in all of the park itself to make it just even more user friendly. There's a small little shell where you could have a Shakespeare play at
Yeah.
certain times of year, or the symphony will go play park concerts there. Um, and it's really a user friendly space. Shelby Park in East Nashville, where so much development has happened. Shelby Park I checked, it's 360 or so acres
Yeah.
of parkland
Cute. Yeah.
that is just right in the middle of everything. So it's wonderful space. You have the Cumberland River that flows through the center of downtown Nashville, and people are on the river
Yeah.
in kind of watercraft imaginable, be it canoes or power boats or
Yeah.
whatever. So you have a lot of outdoor space there. Coming south of the city, we have Fort Negley that's
Hmm.
50 some acres. Radnor Lake and Wildlife Refuge is not far from us, and so you've got that, and I think there's like 1,400 acres are in that neighborhood.
Greenway. Yeah. Green space.
It's a lot of green space. And then you have a lot of little pocket areas where there's a little park
Hmm.
here and there scattered throughout the city.
Yeah.
In the 12th South area, that's a very popular one. There's a park there that's probably 5 or 6 acres,
Right.
but it's a great place for kids' playgrounds, for picnics, for whatever. And even neighborhoods as they are built. For example, Jamie built Cottage Park.
Yeah.
It has like 80 or so homes, but it's a boulevarded street, sidewalks, so it's very walkable. But he designated a portion of it where they could have a space to walk the dogs, to
Yeah.
have picnic tables, or if the neighbors want, they could build a playground. It's open space. And I'm on the Habitat board and have been for a number of years. And instead of doing a habitat home here and there, we do neighborhoods.
Yeah.
we may get a neighborhood where we're putting maybe 175 homes all together, but we do it over a period of maybe 5 years or so.
Hmm.
We build between 30 and 40 houses a year, and we alternate neighborhoods where we go so that the people that are qualifying for habitat homes, they have some choice where in the city they want
Yeah.
to be. But in these neighborhoods, we have areas for picnic tables, for playgrounds for the children. It all has sidewalks so that
Try to create
a
some community and some
walkable
integration.
area. And that's particularly neat because you're helping each other build your houses,
Yeah.
because you have your homework where you have to do certain things that you learn about finances and budgets and that kind of thing. But you also learn how to use all the tools.
Yeah.
And then you have to have a certain number of sweat equity hours of building. And you help
Yeah.
your neighbors, your soon to be neighbors, help build their houses. And then when it's your turn, they will help you build your house.
Yeah.
And so you already know your neighbors, and it's a community,
Hmm.
you know, and it's really neat. And whereas years ago, people were like, not in my backyard, they didn't want a habitat house. Now they're finding out they're so well built. They're, when they do go on a market sale, they are selling more than the non-habitat
The
houses
other ones. Yeah.
because of how well they are built and how low the utility bills are for those houses versus the standard
Yeah.
houses. So it's no more than not in my backyard. It's like, come on,
Come on, more. Yeah. They're
which
built
is
built with heart as well. Yeah.
which is really kind of neat. And then, oh, you were asking about the wildlife.
Yeah.
Now, I know in this area because I've lived here, well, let's see, 19 years in our prior home and 28 years in this home. So I can tell you about this neighborhood. I know that we drive in carefully at night because there's one family of deer that like to sleep in our front yard. And they will often jump across the driveway as you're trying to drive in.
Yeah.
I have seen as many as a dozen deer at a time eating my ground cover and flowers. Um, but also, there's a retaining wall that I can see from where I sit at my computer. And I've seen wild turkeys
Mm.
on that wall, spreading their tail feathers and back. So we have the wild turkeys, we have foxes, we have coyotes. So you have to be careful. If you have
Right.
a dog, you want to keep an eye on it.
Inside.
Um, we have owls. There's one huge owl that seems to like to sit on one of our brick columns here. And so I see and hear him regularly.
Yeah.
And of course, we have the squirrels and chipmunks and an occasional raccoon that unfortunately they seem to be smart enough they can figure out how to open up the trash cans.
Oh no. No, that's the worst.
Fond of those raccoons either. So, and another thing nice about Nashville, we do have a 4 season climate.
Right.
You know, we have all 4 seasons. And right now, as I look out, the leaves are off the trees. But of course, you have the evergreens, you have the magnolias that have all the green still on them. And our grass is still green.
Yeah.
It doesn't grow a lot this time of the year, but it's still green.
Right.
And the family from Chicago that I was dealing with over the weekend, they were like, this is amazing. You have green grass at this time of the year
In winter. Right.
in winter. And in the spring, you will have every shade of green an artist could ever dream of on their palette. It's a really beautiful time. But we have a very long growing season.
Mm.
You know, here we are on what, the 9th of February. In 2 weeks, I will start seeing daffodils in my yard.
Right. Incredible.
They start growing now, and our flowers, instead of everything blooming at once, it grows sequentially through the seasons. And usually it will last until around Thanksgiving.
Mm-hmm.
First frost will come. And what we do, we take out our summer flowers at that point and maybe any mums for the fall that we have put in. And we put in our winter flowers, which are pansies,
Yeah.
which will bloom all winter here.
Yeah.
And so, you know, it is a pretty area vegetation wise
Yeah,
that you have something blooming most of the year.
mostly
Of
you're
course,
right.
some of that does impact allergies.
Yeah,
So if you come, you might want to bring your allergy pills.
yeah. I definitely, I remember having very itchy eyes.
Yeah. One thing I do remember when we first came, Nashville sort of sits in a valley,
Mm,
and there was often a real haze over the city. Air quality was probably a little on the marginal side. Now, even though we still sit in this, and there are weather inversions where you will have a day here and there that is hazy,
yeah.
uh, we have so cleaned up the air um, with the our heating and everything
Mm,
is now it's cleaner. Uh, Automobiles are cleaner. That now the haze is an exception, not a rule.
mm,
We have a lot of really pretty blue sky days here.
yeah. Are
So,
are solar panels common or electric vehicles?
well, I drive an electric vehicle,
Yeah,
so
I know that. Yeah.
good choice. Um, I'm seeing a lot of the Teslas now on the
Hmm.
road,
Yeah.
and maybe I'm just more aware of it because that's what I drive. But we are having a growing number of electric vehicles. Solar panels are coming.
Hmm.
There are some of the newer homes have them,
Hmm.
and our neighborhood had a restriction against them, but that has now been rewritten in the bylaws so that
Hmm.
those could be added.
Right.
Um, but it's not a huge thing yet.
Mm, mm. Yeah.
But it is on the horizon. It is coming.
Yeah, and with so many houses being built, I assume that there's a lot of chance for that to take
Absolutely,
root.
absolutely. Yeah, you are beginning to see some of it more and more.
Yeah.
And like I say, in some neighborhoods, the bylaws for the HOA is such that historically they didn't want that,
Yeah.
but that attitude has really changed.
Yeah.
And like I say, I'm seeing more and more of the electric vehicles,
Right.
and so I think a lot of those things are changing. So
Yeah.
it'll be interesting to watch as time goes by.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
next thing you get to Papa get an electric vehicle.
Yeah. The next 54 years. Uh,
Yeah, yeah,
yeah.
sometime in there. We do need to keep one gasoline powered vehicle at least in the fleet, so that if we need to travel,
Yeah.
we
Last
have
minute.
flexibility. Although I have plotted how I can get back to Southern Illinois University Foundation meetings with my car.
Yeah.
I know where the superchargers are, and I can get
Along the
there.
road.
And my cousin Carol is in the process of moving from Nashville to Atlanta. I'm very sad to say, but her children and grandchildren are there, so it makes sense. But her new home has a Tesla charger in it, and I've already plotted how I can get from Nashville to Atlanta and back
Oh, brilliant.
with my car. So it is coming. It's not like in California where there are chargers everywhere,
Right.
but it is increasing. And I get regular updates as to where another supercharger station has been put in.
That's
So
awesome.
it is coming.
It is coming. Yeah, it's interesting to see that infrastructure roll out across the U.S. and elsewhere.
But
Because it's such a big driving country and
our
national.
distance here can be greater.
Hmm.
Um, and so you have to allow for that.
Right.
But I have a charger here in my home, and our family has a farm uh, in between halfway between here and Alabama,
Yeah.
and a charger in there, so I can drive to the
Yeah.
farm and easily.
Brilliant. My last question is about the activities that the change in activities. Are there activities that you used to do in Nashville that you can't do anymore easily? Or are there things that, other than what we've talked about a little bit, people can do much more?
I would say Walking wise, you have more neighborhoods that have sidewalks or they are deemed to be very
Mm,
walkable. And our neighborhood does not have sidewalks, but I see people out walking all the time. So you do have that. Um, and so people, I think, and maybe it's just the pandemic, but we're all trying to get outside and do things.
yeah,
Um, we also, well, I mentioned we have a lot of churches. I
yeah,
mean, just about every neighborhood, I mean, it has huge churches with these large parking lots.
right, right.
And as long as you're not trying to get in there on a Sunday, it's a great place. Your cousins are able to go just sort of across the street in a neighbor's yard and get to a large parking lot, and they love to go there and ride bikes or rollerblade.
Yeah, yeah.
So those are really accessed and used in fun ways. But also we have two very large lakes, Old Hickory Lake and Percy Priest
Hmm.
Lake, that allow for a lot of boating.
Yeah,
Um, so that is really nice. And Nashville, while it's a big city and now the population is approaching, I thought it was 1.5 million. I checked, we are closing in on 2 million
it's coming up. Yeah,
population. What was 1,950 some thousand.
yeah.
And so we're closing in on that 2 million mark. Yet it only takes a few minutes and you're in the countryside.
Right.
Really nice. I mean, 30 minutes from here, you see wide open country
Mm,
space. And our farm is just over an hour from our house. And there we have 252 acres and we have 100 head of cattle and, you
yeah,
know, grow the hay for the cattle right there on the property, and the Buffalo River surrounds it, sort of like a peninsula like Florida, so we can go
right.
rafting and whatever. But there's a lot of outdoor activity between the neighborhood sports,
Hmm.
baseball, the soccer, that kind of
Yeah,
thing, the YMCA's that are scattered throughout with various pools, and then neighborhood pool associations
yeah,
where they pool and tennis, swimming pool and tennis. Um, or a lot of us have our own pools.
yeah.
And so there is a lot of outdoor
A lot of
um,
outdoor activities now.
activity. So I would say it's at least as much as ever before, if not more.
Yeah.
And so, it's nice, to see people out and about and everybody waving because, Southern hospitality, you have to be friendly.
Yeah, yeah.
You don't hear a lot of horn honking like you would in New York or some places. That is considered very rude
Very,
and
very impolite.
very impolite. That if you honk, it better be a real emergency
Yeah,
or you're saying howdy to a neighbor or friend.
yeah. A baby better be being born. Yeah.
Yeah. So you have to warn people that are moving into Nashville, don't honk your horn. You don't.
That's fantastic. Well, thank you so much. It's been really, really interesting, and you've almost convinced me to move to Nashville. I the tourism board should definitely hire you. They would do well.
Well, it's been a great place to live.
Yeah.
And in like any city, we have some issues here and there, but they really try to resolve them,
Hmm.
which is great.
Yeah.
We're worried about, particularly with the pandemic, the low level of reading literacy,
Yeah.
how it's impacting our kids. And interestingly enough, there's a group called Operation Andrew
Hmm.
for the last, oh gosh, 25 years or more, tried to band together churches of all denominations and
Yeah.
types, all skin colors, all everything, and work together on things. And Metro Nashville schools have actually opened the door talking with Operation Andrew
Mm.
to get churches and schools to adopt each other
Yeah.
so that volunteers can come in and help with the reading.
And to create
And so Papa and I've been involved in that in the last 6 months, helping to fund that effort and to work on increasing the literacy. And with our friends in various churches, um, whatever the denomination or color or whatever is, we have been able to put some things together,
Yeah.
and that's been an interesting thing. But if Nashville sees a need, somebody seems to go, okay, let's see what we can do to fix that.
Yeah.
And that's a
That's
great,
entrepreneurial strength of the people
yeah,
coming through and the community strength as well.
so it's been just a great place to live
Yeah.
because people really care about each other. And like a year ago when tornadoes hit,
Right.
I mean, the storm was barely passed before people were showing up to help clean up and help people. It's just, it's a nice place.
That's fantastic. Well, thank you once again.
You're welcome.